The question is whether there will be willingness to go all the way to possibly inflict something like close to 100 billion euro economic disruption on the US economy. You know, from a rational point of view, yes. We are clearly entering a phase of potential escalation. First, economic escalation, with the threat by Donald Trump of adding 10% to the already existing US tariff on EU goods, to which the EU, or at least some European leaders, have replied that for the first time they might deploy the anti-coercion instrument that actually initially was created to respond to possible economic pressure coming from China. So this is quite ironic that now the EU is contemplating using a tool that was meant to be used against an autocratic regime and economy against its closest economic and political ally. I think on your last point, what is enough with an individual who clearly follows his own emotional, psychological desire and logic, short of having any rational arguments for it. So I think that's the big question everybody is asking themselves. But yes, the anti-coercion instrument potentially can inflict a quite significant economic impact on not only US goods, but also and importantly US services, including from big technological firms, whom, as you know, some of them are ideologically very close to the occupant of the White House. So I think this is what is being discussed right now in Brussels, where I am. But I would not say there is yet a full consensus among the European member states to go with the bazooka. I think they want to see, as the Chancellor of Germany said, they want to see how things evolve in Davos and whether some bilateral diplomacy could help Trump climb down his tree. Of course, you will expect that from Viktor Orban's Hungary, or also from Slovakia, and you could also see the Prime Minister of Italy having a slightly different tone and view than her French or German counterparts and Nordic counterparts. But the bottom line here is the EU doesn't need to have all the EU member states agreeing to deploy the anti-coercion instrument. It can take just a qualified majority. So I think there is already potentially disqualified majority. The question is whether there will be willingness to go all the way to possibly inflict something like close to 100 billion euro economic disruption on the US economy. You know, from a rational point of view, yes, I think NATO and also the EU have to do much better and have to come forward with whatever package they can put on the table to show that Greenland is safe and sustainable under Danish sovereignty. But let's make no mistake here. The allies like Denmark and 6 other allies, the Arctic allies, came forward before the last NATO summit with a similar package on the Arctic and Greenland. And actually the United States, the Donald Trump's administration, turned down the package and refused to agree to the package for the NATO Hague summit. So I think the US is not honest about really what he wants in Greenland. My take is that this is just a personal acquisition dream of Donald Trump. It's not a real national security concern because there is not a specific national security threat upon Greenland. I think the vibe is that you see the president of the most powerful country in the world, who is completely freelancing on his own vision of what he thinks he deserves in terms of power, and I would say narcissistic trip, detached from actually what is the real interest of the United States to go into a head collision with its closest ally. And it is worrying not so much what Trump is saying and doing, but that there's so little checks and balance to stop him doing so.